Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. I want to talk about something that almost every single one of us has experienced, but very few of us talk about openly. It is the pain that comes not from strangers, not from people who never cared about us in the first place, but from the people who were closest to us. The people we trusted the most, the people we let into our hearts, into our homes, into our secrets. And somehow it was them who hurt us the deepest. Isn't it strange? A stranger can say something rude to you on the street, and you shrug it off within minutes. But if your own brother says the same words, it stays with you for years. A random person can disappoint you, and you forget about it by tomorrow. But if your spouse, your parent, your closest friend disappoints you, it becomes a wound that keeps reopening every time you remember it. Why is that? Why does love multiply pain instead of protecting us from it? The answer is simple. Even if it is painful to admit, we only get hurt deeply by people we have given access to. A stranger has no access to your heart, so a stranger cannot wound your heart. But the people closest to you, you opened the door for them. You lowered your guard for them. You trusted them with your weaknesses, your fears, your secrets, your vulnerabilities. And when someone who has that kind of access decides to use it against you, even without meaning to, the wound goes deeper than any outsider could ever reach. This is actually a sign of something beautiful about you, even though it doesn't feel beautiful in the moment. It means you loved. It means you trusted. It means you were open-hearted enough to let someone in instead of walling yourself off from the world out of fear. The pain you feel now is proof that your heart is capable of real love, real connection, real vulnerability. Do not let this experience convince you to close that heart forever. That would be a much bigger loss than the pain you are feeling right now. Think about your own family for a moment. How many of you have a story about a sibling who said something so hurtful you still remember the exact sentence? How many of you have a parent who, even with all their love, said or did something that left a mark on you that you carry until today? How many of you trusted a close friend with something private, only to have it come back to hurt you later? This is not rare. This is not unusual. This is, unfortunately, one of the most common human experiences there is. And here is something important to understand. The people closest to you are also flawed human beings, just like you. They have their own pain, their own insecurities, their own moments of weakness. Sometimes people hurt those closest to them, not because they don't love them, but because they feel safe enough with them to let their worst moments show. Think about that carefully. We often show our best behavior to strangers and our worst behavior to the people who love us the most, because we know or we assume that they will still be there tomorrow. That is not an excuse for the pain caused, but it is an explanation that can help you make sense of why it happens so often within families and close relationships. Now, I am not saying this to minimize what you went through. If a parent said something that crushed your confidence for years, that pain is real. If a sibling betrayed your trust over money or family matters, that pain is real. If a spouse broke a promise that shattered your sense of security, that pain is real. I am not telling you to brush it off as if it doesn't matter. What I am telling you is to understand it, so that it does not control the rest of your life. One of the most dangerous things that can happen after being hurt by someone close to you is that you start building walls, not just around that one person, but around everyone. You become guarded with people who never did anything to deserve your suspicion, not When someone close to you hurts you, there are usually three paths in front of you. The first path is bitterness, where you hold on to the pain, replay it constantly, and let it define how you see that person and eventually how you see people in general. The second path is denial, where you pretend it didn't happen, bury the pain, and act as if everything is fine while the wound quietly festers underneath. The third path, and the one that leads to real healing, is acknowledgement without permanent attachment. This means you fully accept that yes, this happened, yes, it hurt, yes, it was wrong, but you refuse to let it live in your heart rent-free for the rest of your life. This third path requires something difficult, and that is understanding people's limitations. The people closest to you are not perfect, and they were never meant to be. You may have placed expectations on a parent, a sibling, a friend, or a spouse that no human being could ever fully meet, because deep down, only Allah can meet the expectation of never disappointing you, never failing you, never letting you down. When we place that level of expectation on another human being, we are almost guaranteeing our own heartbreak. Because every human being, no matter how much they love us, is going to fail us at some point. This does not mean you should expect nothing from people or trust no one. It means you should hold space for the reality that even the people who love you the most will sometimes get it wrong, will sometimes hurt you unintentionally, and occasionally, sadly, will hurt you on purpose out of their own pain, jealousy, insecurity, or immaturity. Not when you understand this, it takes away some of the shock and personal devastation, because you are no longer asking, how could they do this to me? But rather understanding this is what happens when imperfect people are close enough to affect each other deeply. Now let's talk about something practical. If someone close to you has hurt you and they are still in your life, you have to make a decision about what kind of relationship is realistic moving forward. You do not have to pretend nothing happened. You do not have to go back to full trust immediately, as if the wound never existed. You are allowed to rebuild slowly, to test the relationship over time, to protect your heart while still keeping the door open for reconciliation. Love and boundaries are not opposites. You can love someone deeply and still protect yourself from being hurt by them again in the same way. For some of you, the person who hurt you the most is no longer in your life, whether by distance, conflict, or death. This is a particularly heavy kind of pain because there is no opportunity for closure, no conversation where they finally understand what they did, no apology that finally arrives. If this is you, understand that closure does not have to come from them. Closure can come from you choosing to release the weight of what happened, even without an apology, even without an explanation, purely for the sake of your own peace and your own connection with Allah. I want to address something else that often goes unspoken. Sometimes we are the ones who hurt the people closest to us. We say things in anger to our own family that we would never say to a stranger. We take our stress out on the people who love us unconditionally because we know they will still be there. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, this is your moment to reflect. The same mercy and understanding you want people to have for you when you make mistakes needs to be something you also offer to the people who have hurt you imperfectly, painfully, but perhaps without the intention you assumed. There is a lesson here about the nature of closeness itself. Closeness is a double-edged sword. The same nearness that allows for the deepest love also allows for the deepest pain. There is no way to have one without risking the other. If you want deep, meaningful relationships, you must accept that deep, meaningful pain is sometimes part of that same territory. The alternative, avoiding closeness altogether to avoid pain, leads to a life of isolation and emptiness, which is its own kind of suffering, often worse than the pain of a broken relationship. So what do we do with all of this? We accept that being hurt by those closest to us is one of the most common human experiences, not a personal curse reserved just for us. We stop expecting perfection from imperfect people while still holding healthy boundaries where needed. We choose healing over bitterness, even when the other person never apologizes. We recognize our own capacity to hurt others, especially those closest to us, and work on becoming gentler with the people who show up for us every day. And most importantly, we remember that the only relationship that will never disappoint us, never betray us, and never abandon us is our relationship with Allah. Every human relationship, no matter how close, will have moments of imperfection. But the connection between you and your Creator can be the one constant that never lets you down if you nurture it with the same effort you give to everyone else. Tonight, think about the people who are closest to you. Think about the pain that still lingers from something they did. And ask yourself honestly, am I holding on to this in a way that is protecting me, or in a way that is slowly poisoning me? If it is the second, it may be time to release it, not because they deserve to be let off the hook, but because your own heart deserves peace, and because the people who love you imperfectly are still, in most cases, worth keeping in your life with wiser boundaries and clear eyes.